Marriage of misery. Tolu and Akin got married 3 years ago, but those 3 years felt like a lifetime of misery for Tolu. From the beginning, Akin's family made her feel like an outsider. She couldn't even recall how many times she was insulted, humiliated, and reduced to tears. Akin was the middle child, sandwiched between an older brother who barely acknowledged her and a younger sister who was the bane of her existence. His siblings practically lived with them, turning Tolu into their unpaid servant, and Akin did nothing about it. Every time his sibling ridiculed Tolu, Akin will remain silent as though he couldn't see the torment she was enduring. Akin and Tolu were trying for a child, and every doctor said Tolu was medically okay. But according to Akin's family, the issue was all on Tolu. Akin's mother would say, "Tolu, you are definitely the problem because in our family, no one has fertility issue. We are all perfectly okay with bearing children." When Tolu suggested that Akin should follow her to the hospital to run a fertility test too, her mother-in-law said, "You must be possessed. It is you who is barren. There is no point in testing Akin. This doesn't happen in our family." Tolu exhaled sharply, feeling the sting of those words as fresh as the day they were spoken. One day, Tolu had an argument with Akin's sister, Kemi. That was one of the worst days of Tolu's life. What started as a small dispute turned into something ugly. Kemi pushed Tolu so hard that she fell to the floor, and Akin's whole family laughed at her. All of them. "Look at her. All talk but no strength." Kemi sneered, and the other chuckled in agreement. Akin, who was standing off to the side, said nothing. Tolu clenched her fist, her chest tightening with a mix of anger and betrayal. She felt an extraordinary sadness and anger, particularly toward her husband, Akin. Tolu wanted out of the marriage, but she feared what society would say about her being a divorcee. Kemi's wedding in July was the turning point. Tolu stood in the circle, watching everyone offer their prayer for Kemi's happiness in her new home. Her mother-in-law was smiling, proud of Kemi and expectant of Tolu's blessing. When it was Tolu's turn, with a calm, measured voice, she said, "May you be welcomed to your husband's family the same way your family welcomed me into your brother's house. May you have a mother-in-law like your mother, and may you experience even greater things than I have experienced in my marriage." Hearing that, Kemi and her mother frowned deeply, throwing daggers at Tolu through their eyes. There was a moment of confusion. Only Kemi's husband and family said amen, not understanding the bitterness behind the words. But her in-law were speechless, their eyes widened in shock, stunned into silence. After the wedding, her mother-in-law cornered her, fury etched in every wrinkle of her face. "You are a witch, swearing for my daughter like that on her wedding day. What did she ever do to you?" Tolu's mother-in-law was boiling with anger, and then she said, "So you admit you've been treating me badly? Because if you hadn't, that prayer would have been a blessing to you and not a curse, wouldn't it?" Before she knew it, her mother-in-law raised her hand, ready to strike, but some family members and friends intervened, pulling her away. Back at home, Akin sulked, refusing to speak to Tolu for 2 whole weeks. But Tolu didn't care anymore. For the first time in 3 years, she felt a strange kind of peace. Resentment has taken root deep inside her towards her husband, and she no longer cared to appease him or his family. It was clear how much she had tolerated, and she was done. When Akin finally realized she wasn't going to apologize this time, he threatened her with divorce. Tolu shrugged and said, "Maybe it is for the best. We are not destined to have children together anyway. Let's go our separate ways. I agree, let's divorce." Her indifference shocked Akin. He expected the usual pleading with tears, but this time was different. Instead, he found a woman who had reached her limit, who no longer wanted to tolerate the abuse in her marriage. A woman who had seen enough. Seeing that Tolu was ready for divorce, fear crept into Akin's mind. He started looking for ways to change Tolu's mind. I honestly didn't mean it when I asked for divorce. Let's try counseling. We can fix this, Akin said to Tolu, adding non-stop begging. And Tolu said, whether I accept to remain in this marriage or not depend on if you get yourself checked medically. You must run a fertility test. Akin, who desperately wants to keep Tolu in the marriage, agreed and went for the fertility test. And then boom, it turned out that Akin was the one with the problem. After all the blame, or the accusation thrown at Tolu, it turned out that Akin was the one with low sperm count, so low that he was on the verge of permanent infertility. The irony was so almost cruel. Tolu cried bitterly. The more she remembered all the insults that Akin's family had thrown at her about fertility, the more she cried. And then she felt happy, liberated even. She felt good. And then Akin started begging Tolu not to tell anyone about him being the one with low sperm counts. He begged Tolu to keep his strict secret. He didn't want her to expose him to his family. Don't expose me. Please, let's forget about everything and start anew. Akin saw, but Tolu shook her head. She would have listened to Akin and covered his shame, but he couldn't do it because it was unfair to her. Akin's family would keep believing that Tolu was the problem and continue to tormenting her. She believed it was selfish of Akin to suggest keeping the secret. He prioritized his ego over her own mental health. The next day, Tolu called for a family meeting. Both her family and Akin's family gathered. With tears in her eyes, Tolu spoke about everything that had happened to her in her matrimonial home. She shared how Akin's siblings and mother tormented her and how Akin did nothing to defend her. She spoke about how she had been tagged barren for so long. As Tolu spoke, her mother-in-law rolled her eyes and ears, wondering why Tolu felt the need to call a family meeting to humiliate them. She was planning how to bash and insult Tolu even in front of her family, boiling with anger. Akin's heart raised, waiting for the worst revelation to come. And then boom, Tolu dropped the bombshell. She continued, so despite everything that has been done to me, now imagine that the problem of our childlessness is Akin. Is the cause of it. He has low sperm count. Hearing that, everyone's eyes widened in shock. No one could believe it. The news was unbelievable. Shame overcame Akin's mother and she shifted uncomfortably in her seat, exclaiming, repeatedly. She thought of how to wash away the shame and began gaslighting Tolu. She said, so is that why you call a family meeting with your husband to expose him? You, this bad wife, how dare you? How dare you do this? How dare you humiliate your husband in the presence of the extended family? Are you mad? Are you stupid? As she spoke, she rushed toward Tolu and about to slap her, but she was stopped by a sharp slap from Tolu's mom. Tolu's mother. Tolu's mother was so furious. My daughter is talking about how much you have mistreated her and you are still showing it to us. You don't respect us at all, do you? You, this nonsense mother-in-law. I'm taking my daughter home today. She's no longer marrying your daft son. Tolu's mom breathed heavily as she spoke while Akin's mom held her cheek in shock. Hearing that Tolu's mom was taking her daughters away, Akin ran forward, begging her not to take his wife away. He begged Tolu's mom and pleaded with Tolu to ask her mother for forgiveness on his behalf. That was when Akin's family became humble, quiet for the first time in years, including the mother-in-law. The slap from Tolu's mom humbled her and reset her brain, putting her in her place. The mother-in-law began begging Tolu's mom to let Tolu stay, to forgive her son and to be patient. Akin was depressed and lost. He pleaded as if his life depended on it. Where will I start if you leave me? Please give me one more chance. Tolu looked at him, felt nothing but pity. The man she once loved now seemed so small, so broken. But the love she had for him was gone. Staying in the marriage would be out of guilt, not affection. Her siblings had told her it was her decision and they would support her either way. But she sat there wondering, could love ever come back after all she had been through if she decided to stay, or could she walk away for good? Tolu's mother took her home despite all of Akin's play. The first thing that made Tolu happy was how her mother stood up for her, even slapping her mother-in-law in her defense. She didn't expect it, and it strengthened her love for her mother, making her feel proud. Akin couldn't sleep through the night. The thought of losing his wife terrified him. He loved her deeply, but his weakness and desire to please his family kept him from standing up for her when they mistreated her. Akin never defended Tolu, fearing they would call him weak or a woman rapper or a simp. But now, the woman he loved so much was slipping away and he couldn't handle it. He threatened his family, saying if they didn't get his wife back to him, he would kill them and kill himself. He was dead serious. The next day, Akin, his mother and his siblings went to Tolu's family house to beg for her return. Seeing how miserable her son was, Akin's mother was willing to do anything to get Tolu back for him. They all pleaded with Tolu's parents and begged Tolu herself. Tolu's mother spoke about how badly they have treated her daughter and made it clear that she would support whatever decision her daughter made. Tolu told them to leave, saying she would get back to Akin with her decision. A week passed, then a month. Tolu never called Akin. She also ignored his call whenever he tried to reach her. Tolu and her mother had discussed the matter and they agreed that Akin deserved another chance. Her mother prayed the importance of forgiveness as long as the person who wronged you is truly remorseful and willing to make things right. She told Tolu that she wouldn't have supported the idea if Akin hadn't shown real regret. But now that he had, she advised Tolu to give him a trial period. She should go back to Akin's house, watch his behavior, and see how things play out. If Akin and his family didn't change, then they would separate and the divorce would be final. When Akin returned to Tolu's house, expecting her to dismiss him as usual, she surprised him. She told him he had forgiven him, but would return to his house under certain conditions. Your mother and siblings practically lived with us, and that needs to stop. They've been a huge problem in our marriage, so they should stay in their own houses. They must never disrespect me or mistreat me ever again, and you must take your medication for your low sperm count seriously so we can have children of our own. Those are my conditions. If you agree, we can stay married. If not, then we can go our separate ways and the divorce will be official. Hearing this, Akin's eyes widened. He quickly responded, "Of course, the conditions are okay with me. I'll go home right now and send them all away. Now that I understand how important you are in my life, I won't let you cry again. I'll always make you happy and you won't regret giving me this second chance. Thank you, my love. Thank you so much." Akin was full of gratitude and they hugged each other. Akin's family gave them space and the couple lived happily ever after. 2 years later, Tolu became pregnant and gave birth to twins, a girl and a boy. And that was when Kemi, Akin's sister, began facing trouble in her own marriage. She revealed that her husband had been beating her since their honeymoon and it continued for 2 years. Do you think Kemi is now reaping the seed she and her mother sowed by mistreating Tolu? Or is this just a coincidence? Or is it karma at work? Type your opinion in the comment section. This brings us to the end of this story. See you in my next story. Hope you learned something from this particular story. Don't forget to follow me, like this post, share this post and add it to your favorite. Thanks for always watching.